Thank you. I'm going to talk to you, and I'm going to shorten the presentation a little bit because I'm sure you have many questions about lean initiatives. But I'm going to talk to you for about the next 40 minutes on green initiatives. Green is a big buzzword at the moment. We're all going green. I had to see a doctor because my finger went green, but that's a separate issue. So briefly today, I'm going to talk to you about green. What does it mean? What do we actually mean by the green initiative? More importantly, I'm going to talk to you with some examples of green implementations. And one of those examples is a factory that I work with very closely called MAS Intimates in Turali, in Sri Lanka. And we were the first carbon neutral apparel manufacturing company in the world. I'm going to have a look at how green impacts lean, because green and lean go hand in hand, and how it can give us that differentiating edge. We were all talking about the differentiating edge for the last 2 days, and green can give you that differentiating edge. But very soon, if you're not going green, if you're not moving towards environmental sustainability, it won't be a differentiating edge. It'll be like quality. It'll be expected. The retailers will be saying, if you're not doing it, don't bother knocking on my door. And then we'll have do a brief summary, and we'll get in some questions. Okay, I think hopefully from the last couple of days a little bit about me, so I'm not going to go through that. Just to tell you that I've been in industry since about '87, and one of my primary roles, as I say, was the Lean Project Director at the MAS Green Factory, which is what I'm going to focus on. So green for lean. What does green mean? What does green mean? Any suggestions? Green? Environment, yeah, okay. Anybody else? Sustainability? Carbon-free, okay. Getting there. Any more? You must study this. You must study what green is. You've probably got a course on green, haven't you? Yeah? Okay, you can. Actually, you can do the presentation. No, you don't want to. Okay. All right, well, I'll tell you what it means to me. Sustainable development and ongoing operations. Sustainable development and ongoing operations. So it's not just about one thing. It's about how we continually reduce our impact, on the environment. Charles has been talking a lot about waste and improvements and throwing out the way we work now and improve everything. So we continually make improvements. And this is one area we've got to get into, one area we don't really think about as much as we should. How do we reduce continually our impact on the environment? How do we build factories and run factories for the lowest impact on the environment? Our methods of working have got to really just become carbon-free, carbon neutral. We've got to have zero impact. Lower energy usage. Energy is expensive. Electricity prices going up. If we can minimize our electricity usage, we're better for the environment, we're better for our bottom line, we're better for our profitability. And one phrase that's obviously people probably know about, RRR, reduce, reuse, recycle. Well, we're trying to add A to that now. We're now using R, ARR, which is avoid. Avoid. So the first question is not, how do I reduce what I'm doing? How do I reduce my impact on the environment? First question is, how do I avoid this in the first place? I don't know about you, but when I buy garments in a retail store, I take them home and I very rarely wear them with the hanger in the back. I very rarely wear them with the little packaging. I take all that packaging out, I throw it away. And then I think, well, why is the retailer giving me that? I've just paid for that. I've paid for the packaging. And I've thrown it away. Well, now the retailer is asking me to give it back to them so they can recycle it again. Well, why put it on in the first place? Avoid it. Get rid of it. So avoid, reduce, reuse, recycle. This is a slide I picked up from the Green Purchasing Network presentation, 2003, Japanese group. And I think it's a great little slide, actually. It's great. Make the input green. Reduce our inputs. Use non-hazardous materials. Use things that are easy to recycle. Your cost, if you go through every single material that you use. Yesterday, maybe Ranji mentioned that 50 to 70% of the cost of the garment is material. And some of those materials we throw away. We just put out. They're just waste. How do we reuse that? How do we bring it back into the process? How do we, when it comes as an output, we send it back through so it becomes an input again? Marks and Spencer, one of the key people who started the drive for all of this environmental improvement. They have a big drive on hangers. So now you go to their store, when you buy the garment, they take the hanger and they probably keep it. And then they send it back to the manufacturer. And the manufacturer reuses it. So it's going through that cycle. Some examples, what we're talking about. Brandix Green Factory. A couple of people have come to talk to me and said, yeah, we know about Brandix. Brandix Green Factory in Sri Lanka, fantastic. And it is. Brandix Green Factory, it's the highest rated platinum certified green apparel manufacturing plant in the world. There's an American group called the US Green Building Council, and they have a certification called LEED, L-E-E-D, which is Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And you get your building certified by these people. Platinum is the highest you can get, and Brandix did that. And they took a factory that they were running, and they changed that factory, and they made it a green plant, and it became platinum certified. So it's not even a case, people say to me, oh, well, we've got this factory, it's not very good. It can be done. It can be changed. They've reduced their carbon dioxide emissions by 80%. Their sulfur dioxide emissions by 71%. Their nitrogen oxide emissions by 92%. They've achieved an energy saving, bottom line, straight away, 46%. 46%. They reduced water consumption by 70%. And they now recycle pretty much all of their outputs and their waste. Hanes Brands, big USA retailer. 2009, they had a renewable energy sourcing initiative and a commitment to energy efficiency. And that reduced the carbon footprint equal to removing more than 47,000 cars from the roads for 1 year. So they made changes to the way they worked, and it was the same as taking 47,000 cars off the road for a year. They have 30% of their total energy now supplied by renewable energy sources. And they just built a new textile factory in Nanjing in China. They're getting the LEED certification again there. Patagonia, they do something fairly simple. They create a carbon footprint information for all their products. So you go to their website, and you go and you find what product it is, and you can tell how much carbon, what's the carbon footprint for that? How much carbon is wasted or produced through that product. They use e-information. They get rid of paper. I'll print on both sides, by the way. Do you print on both sides? You recycle? Should do. The Patagonia. Two companies I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about. Stretchline in Sri Lanka. You may have heard of Stretchline. They manufacture elastics primarily. They are quite a big company, it's surprising. Based in Hong Kong, has facilities in China, Indonesia, Sri Lanka, UK, USA, Mexico. They decided that about 4 years ago, they decided they had to take some green initiatives on board. So they've been rapidly changing the way they work. And these are some of the things they do. Some of the things anybody can do. They recycle all their boxes and all their paper. Everything recycled. They consolidated their delivery system. They implemented what we call a milk run. So they found out that a lot of their suppliers were actually not far from them, and each of those suppliers was sending their own lorry with the materials they required. And they said, hang on, wait. Why don't we send out a truck to all those suppliers and pick up what we need? Now that impacts on lean as well, because then you reduce what you are holding within your business. You pick up what you need when you need it, and you reduce your carbon emissions, 45% saving. They recycle all the waste. They put in energy-saving light bulbs. That's good. We've got them in here. That's great. They switch off the lights. Right, here's one. Switch off the lights. It's good that we've not got all the lights on here. But so many places, so many factories I go, I think one of the factories, Charles put a slide up, there were lights on everywhere, all the way, everywhere. And people build factories. And in the ceilings, they put lights everywhere. But you don't need it. I think you can see me, just about. We don't need all the light. And switch off the lights when we're not using them. They reduced the paper consumption. They did some simple things. Stopped water leaks in the factory. I was in a factory in Bangladesh last year, and I went into one of the toilets, because I always go to the worker toilets, because I think worker toilets are a very good indicator of how management think about their workforce. If you go to a worker toilet, if managers wouldn't go to a worker toilet, then they have no respect for the workforce. And I went into this toilet, and the water was pouring out of this bowl, the wash basin, just pouring out continually. The tap was running. And I tried to turn it off. It wouldn't turn off. Just kept going. And I said to somebody, look, you've got to fix this. And they, oh, okay, yeah, whatever. In the hotel here, where I'm staying, there's a little sign that says only 2% of the world's water is fresh water. 2%. Now, water is going to be a big thing in the next 10, 15 years. Already, okay, it already is. But it's going to get worse and worse. We're going to have to save water. They change their dyeing cycles. They do a lot of dyeing of elastics. They change the dyeing cycles, and they reduce water consumption by 30%. Now, again, reducing the cost, putting more on the bottom line. They change from diesel to natural gas. Save money. They put plastic strips on the doors so that all the air conditioning wasn't just going out of the door, and it had to work even harder, and so on and so on. They implemented 10 steps for a greener workplace. It's quite small. But things like switching off the desktop monitors during breaks and meetings. Breakfast, lunch, tea breaks. How many of you, I was working for a Vietnamese company last year, and they used to have a room that was maybe 4 times the size of this room. All of the product development went on in that room. Everybody had a desktop PC, pretty much. And when we went home at night, not one single person turned off their monitor. Not a single person. I went round. Every single one had just gone on with the little red light. Now, I don't know if you know about this, but when you see the little red light on your TV or on your monitor, that doesn't mean you're going into some kind of fantastic energy-saving mode. It's in standby. And standby means it can come on like that as soon as you want it. And that means it's using about 80% of the electricity that when you're running it on full. So you're not saving a great deal. Turn it off. Switch it off. Use computers. Use laptops with battery power. Use the battery power. So all these things they put into this greener office. Switch off the computers. Avoid printing the documents. Make double-sided prints and copies. Print only really what you need. This is about the only printout I've had. And I only really printed this out because I wanted to make sure that I was getting the figures right. Switch off the lights. Switch off the lights. When you go to the toilet, in your factories, in your companies, are the lights on when you walk in? Probably. But is there anybody in there? No. Maybe there's been nobody in there for an hour. Switch the lights off. Simple things. Reprogram air conditioning units. If you've got air conditioning units, I didn't know this until they gave me this slide. Every degree warmer can save you 6 to 8% of your energy costs. I go into factories, and Sri Lanka used to drive me berserk. I go into a big factory, and I'd have to put my jacket on, and I'd have to practically put a coat on. It was colder than the UK. I said to me, look, I came out this part of the world because I can't stand the cold weather in the UK. I came here to get warm, and you're putting air conditioning on about 16 degrees. The cost is phenomenal. Increase the cost. Yeah, maybe, yeah. Okay, MAS Intimates. This is where I was based for about a year. We built a factory from scratch. We had a piece of waste ground. We had a piece of empty ground, and we built the factory. And we built it for two or three reasons. First of all, we built a factory in line with Marks and Spencer Plan A initiatives. Marks and Spencer, about 4 or 5 years ago, launched Plan A. And this was the big drive. This was the thing that really raised awareness about environmental problems, environmental issues. They wanted to impact the climate. They wanted to reduce waste. They wanted better use of natural resources. They wanted to be a fair and ethical partner. I think they're still working on that one. They want health and well-being for their employees. Yeah. And so we said, okay, MES said, Marks and Spencer, we will build a factory that is a representation of what you want. We will build a factory that is a model for the industry that people can see and come and visit, that works on these 5 areas. But that factory has to be cost-effective and profitable. It's no good building a great green factory if you lose money. So we have to be cost-effective and profitable. So we put in lean manufacturing and lean supply chain processes. We'll build it around that with a lean organizational structure. Charles mentioned in Bangladesh, no managers, no supervisors almost, some teams running themselves. That's what we were aiming for at Intimates. Provide this model that others could use and adapt. It's not the best, because somebody can do it better. It might be the best now, but somebody can do it better. And the other key reason we wanted to do was because that area was really kind of, they'd had a big fabric park there, and the fabric park had closed, and all the people in the local villages and local area were out of work. And so this factory was the start point of regenerating that community, rebuilding that community. And as we train people, not only on lean manufacturing and environmental areas, but what we wanted them to do was to take these ideas back into their homes. Take the minimizing of waste, and the waste on the environmental side, back into their houses. Switch off the lights at home. Switch off the TV at home. So we built a sustainable building. We built with respect for nature. We built into the landscape. There was a big bowl which was in the land. Now, most people will come and say, all right, we can't build there, or what we've got to do is dig it out so it's a big flat area. No. Our architects designed this building, and I'll show you some pictures in a minute, that sat in the landscape. And not only that, sat in the landscape, but only took around 25% of the footprint of the entire site area. So we minimized our impact on the landscape. Actually, when you see the pictures, it's like a hotel. It's a fantastic place to work. We built it for the employee. We built it with windows, big windows everywhere. So we used natural daylight. We felt there was nothing worse than just being closed in all day. You come into a factory, they shut the doors, you never see daylight. So it was built with this idea people could look outside and see the trees, see the nature, get a less stressful work environment. Local materials we used. Concrete. We used concrete and compressed earth blocks. Roads and pathways with cement stabilized earth, not tarmac. And what that meant was the water, when it came down, ran through. Didn't run off and pool up and you get big floods everywhere. It ran through and it kept the earth underneath regenerated. The building was designed facing north, facing east to west, I should say. So the sun came across the building. So again, we didn't have a direct sunlight glare in, and the operators, oh God. And we planted lots of trees around it. So again, there was shade, and we cooled the building. We had green roofs on top. So like here, this is a great building actually. We did the green roofs on top of this building. Same thing, but in the factory. And it cooled the buildings inside. The office block is built on stilts, actually off the ground. So again, the earth is not impacted underneath. Here's some photos, and you can see this is one of the production buildings. It's a 2-story production building. In the large picture, you can see there's glass all the way around. So we maximized the use of daylight. What that meant was we could minimize the use of lighting internally. We didn't light the alleyways. We just lit where we needed to around the actual production areas. On the side, you can see these, the orange, kind of orange brickwork, the 2 blocks. Those are toilet blocks. So when it rained, the water was collected in the top of those toilet blocks, and then that water was used to flush the toilets below. We didn't need to pump the water up. It was just natural downward flow. The smaller picture shows one of the green roofs. The green roofs we put over the office blocks, we put on some of the work areas. Again, it cooled the building. It trapped the heat as it came down. It stopped it going down inside. so we could reduce our need for cooling inside the building. And on top, you can't really see this unfortunately, but on top of the white roof, there was a solar array. It was the largest solar array in Sri Lanka. Provided about 10% of the electricity we needed when we were working for the factory, for the machines. The white roof is actually what we call a cool roof. It reflects the heat. So about 80% of the sun's heat and light is reflected back away. So again, it's all cooled inside. This is the back of the building. This is the office block. As you can see, it's built on stilts. It's built off the ground. It overlooks a man-made lake that was there already. It's like being in a hotel. But the big problem was, as managers, we all had offices on that block. We never got to use them because we were working the same way as Charles is talking about. We had offices, we had tables on the shop floor. We never went in the offices apart from maybe an hour in the evening. We had offices, we had tables on the shop floor for problem solving, for working, so we could see what was going on. Designed to the Green Building Council LED standard. We got a gold standard in the end. It's very difficult to get platinum when you're building from new because you have to keep all the earth you dig out. You have to keep all kinds of trees and everything. So it was good. It was a good result, good gold standard. Again, this is the office block from the back, built off the ground. Production area again. You can see how we planted trees to shade the production area. And they were indigenous trees, so things that were from Sri Lanka. We didn't import trees from all over the world. We used local trees because they were acclimatized in that region. And what this did was it shaded the building enough so that we didn't have to use air conditioning. We became more and more energy efficient. We used photovoltaic solar panels, PV solar panels on the roof, 10% of our electricity. We developed an agreement with the local SLEB, the Sri Lankan Electricity Board. And what we agreed was that outside working hours, any electricity that was provided by those solar panels would run the meters backwards, was fed back to the grid. So we offset our electricity costs when we weren't working on Sundays, when we weren't working in the evenings, when we weren't working on Poya days and holidays. All that electricity was still gained, was fed back to the grid and offset our bill. So our bills came down again. And the other 90%, if you're wondering how we became carbon neutral, we purchased electricity from a hydroelectric power plant. So all the electricity we use, all of it, was from renewable sources. I mentioned some of these things. Large windows were used, so the lighting was reduced without heat gain. We didn't like the offices or the canteen or the reception areas or the meeting rooms. They were all open. They all relied on daylight. We developed an innovative electrical grid system. I'll show you some pictures, actually. It may be better for you. Let's go. Okay. You can maybe see this here. We developed a grid system in the ceiling where we could hang lights where we needed them. Every light could be placed where we needed it, over an operator. Not in the alleyways, not in the gangways. So here you can see some of the lights were placed at 90 degrees to the operator, some were directly overhead. If we need to change the way that team worked, we just switched off that light, we unhooked it from the ceiling, we placed it somewhere else. Every one of those lights individually switchable, and switchable by team, and switchable by whole floor. So when the floor went for break, click on switch, everything's off. Not only that, but by using this hanging system, this flexible system, we lit about 50% of the sewing floor. So we didn't have lights everywhere. Most companies you'll see, we've got lights all the way through all of these systems. We had about 50% of the lighting that a normal company would have. Again, reduced our cost. These three pictures, one shows the monitor board that we had in reception. And this monitor board told us how much carbon dioxide we'd saved by using the solar array. It also told us how much energy we'd gained that day, we'd generated, and also how much we'd gained through the entire period of running that solar panel. The middle picture shows the boardroom. Big wall light, big windows, so natural lighting used. And the third one shows one of our operators. We used LED lighting. I noticed in the conference program somebody's advertising sewing machine LED lighting. Get it, and turn the lights off overhead. This will save you money. This will save you money. Let's go over it. Okay. You can see that each one is individually switched, has an individual plug on the overhead system. So very energy efficient. We didn't use AC. We also used an evaporative cooling system instead of air conditioning, because air conditioning is about 50% of the electricity cost of any factory. So by using evaporative cooling, we reduced that to 25%. So we saved again half. And because we put the trees up, because we've got the cool roofs, because we've got the reflecting roofs, we already reduced the temperature inside. So whereas outside was maybe 32 degrees, 33 degrees, the cool roof will bring it down to 32 or 31. The tree shading will bring it down to 30 or 29. The evaporative cooling system will bring it down to 28, 27, 26. So we made a difference of about 5 degrees. Now, when I'm back in my house in Thailand, and I'm really hot, I put the air conditioning on and I set it at 26 or 27 degrees. And that's fine. That's good for me. I can't take it any colder than that. But in the factories, we set it at 18 or 20. It's freezing. Again, this shows the evaporative cooling system. And also you can see a little bit about the overhead grid system. The evaporative cooling system basically takes air and blows it through cooled water, and then that air is then blown out into the factory. So you get a breeze as well, and a pleasant breeze, like a natural breeze. We had waste management. We set targets for avoiding, reducing, reusing, recycling. 5-year targets, how we were going to reduce everything down, reduce the packaging, reduce the transportation. We wanted milk runs. We wanted our finished goods to be taken to the port, and on the way back, pick up the fabric and pick up the materials that we needed for the next week. So in the factory, we never had more than a week's worth of stock. That's the way we wanted to run it. We sent shipments only by sea, not only for cost reasons, but because that reduces carbon emissions. We reuse cartons. We send them back to suppliers. Thread cones. Every empty thread cone collected, sent back to Coates. Sent back to Coates Threads. The plastic covers that you would get when you open that box from Coates or from your thread supplier, you've probably got a plastic sleeve. We sent those back as well. Reuse them. We used reused hangers from Marks and Spencer. I already mentioned about that. We used fabric scraps for local temples. So things that we couldn't really recut or reuse for the manufacture of the product. And we reused a lot because we were making bras, and so we could use small pieces and offcuts. Those we couldn't, we gave to the local temple, and they made them into handicrafts. They trained local people to make handicrafts and cushions and home furnishings. And the ones we couldn't give to the temple, we resent for defibering. So the offcuts were defibered, and then were made back into yarn for use things like carpeting. So we had this, we manage our wastes. Our raw material, our product, used with the local temple. And again, we were supporting the community. They sold those products. So we were supporting that local community. Natural resources. Obviously, land and water are precious. We minimize the use of land. We built 2-story buildings. Not often done in Sri Lanka. You go to Sri Lanka, most factories are 1-story, massive building. Take all the land you like. There's plenty of land. We built 2-story to reduce our impact on the land. We built the offices on stilts. Water consumption was 50% less than a normal factory because we trapped the rainwater. We made the toilets low flush. You know you can get these dual flush systems. Yeah, low flush, high flush. We used low flush. Any overflow was captured in the lake. So all the water was used, even naturally, to replenish the earth. We controlled any wastewater through an anaerobic digestion system, which produced gas, biogas. The biogas was going to be used for cooking in the kitchen. So everything was used. Solids were used as compost for the trees and the natural plants that we were putting in around the factory. So again, we collected this rainwater, we harvested it, we used it for toilets, we used it for biogas, we used it for compost. We purified it, we put it back into the lake so it would replenish the land around. And we designed the factory for lean manufacturing. Production areas were originally designed, the factory was originally designed to have a big central cutting system and then feed work out to sewing units. And we threw that out. We threw that away because what we wanted was a production area that was cut to box. And when I say cut to box, I mean the fabric goes in one part of the build and one part of the area, and you see the whole production process, and the finished good box goes out the other end. So within one area, this was the layout we used. In the center of the building, center of the production area, we had a cutting table. The fabric was brought into the cutting table, we spread it, it was passed to band knives at either end of the cutting table. The band knives would cut the pieces. They would go into work boxes, and each work box held about an hour worth of work. And those work boxes were a system to limit work in progress and to reorder work for each of the 5 sewing lines at each end of the production area. So the flow of work was all in one area. We could see everything. You could stand by the cutting table, you could immediately see a problem. And the throughput time from getting fabric onto the cutting table to getting a box out of the door and back into the finished goods warehouse, less than 1 day. Less than 1 day. We cut it in the morning, we put it in a box, we put it through the line in the afternoon, it was out in the finished goods warehouse in the evening. I was talking to a friend of mine who runs another factory in Sri Lanka, a factory called Unicella. He's making a bra in 9 minutes with one of his teams. And they're doing 100% efficiency, he tells me, on a 9-minute bra. And not only that, he's got cutting tables next to that team. So in the morning, they cut it, then they make it in 9 minutes, 100% efficiency, and they box it. They're doing it in about 3 to 4 hours. So this is now inefficient. I'm now out of date. I'm slow at 1 day. They're doing it in 3 or 4 hours. So I've got to go back and try again. We had controlled minimum maximum work levels, both on the teams. So within a team, we've been talking about balancing. Paul was talking about balancing earlier on, and the problems you get with balancing. We didn't really do a lot of data collection. We said, right, how much is going on the team? Is it our target? How much is coming off the team? Is it our target? If no, what's going on? What problems we've got? How will we solve those problems? And if we were getting it on but not getting it off, we just looked at the team. We looked at the U-shaped team, and we looked for where the pile of work was. Who's got the work? Or who hasn't got the work? We see a pile of work, we've got a problem, because we should be really on almost one-piece flow through these systems. This is a picture of one of the cells we had. 22 operators making a bra all the way through to the very end. At the end of the line, we finished it, we bagged it, we boxed it. We hung it on a rail. We had a tag system. This is waiting for AQL approval. Green, pass, put it in the box, get it out, finished goods. Red, check it again. Again, very visual, very easy. You could stand in the middle of the shop floor, you could see where there was a quality problem. That one, red over there. And immediately we could get quality people to go and check what's going on. On every sewing floor, we had a round table, which had a sign over it, problem-solving area. PDCA, Charles has mentioned. We had a big board, PDCA board, write down the problem. What's the problem? What's the causes? What are we doing? What actions are we taking? Who's taking them when? Finish it. Get it sorted. Get it cleared. But everything was easy to find out and quick to respond to. We didn't need lots of reporting systems because it was all there. It was like in this room. I can see I'm cutting it there, I'm making it there, I'm boxing it there, it's out the door. I've got a problem because nobody's sewing. What's going on? Cutting problem. It was all there. So green and lean. How do we tie the two together? Well, profit. Toyota say profit equals price minus cost. Charles says the same thing, so it must be true. It must be true. Profit equals price minus costs. You cannot set your price. You might get a little bit of leeway, but for the most part, Richard's going to tell you how much he's going to pay for it, and that's it. You're done. But the costs are up to you. The costs are up to you. And if you minimize your use of natural resources, minimize the use of electricity, minimize the use of water, you'll save money. You become energy efficient, you save money. You save cost. You maximize employee productivity, you make money. And if you have a happy workforce, Charles's great slide with the girls, I think that is the big reward for all of us. If you see the people who are and they're happy doing the work, you get a healthy environment. You get more productivity, absolutely. You control your WIP levels, less cash tied up, less working area required. How many people have got an excess stock warehouse? An excess stock warehouse. I went to work with this Bangladesh company last year. I walked into this area. It was probably 5 times the length of this room, about the similar width, full of fabric, full of accessories. I said, this is quite a lot of stock to be holding for before you make the product. He said, no. This is the excess. This is the leftover. So, okay, I think we've got some work to do. Focusing on problem solving. Faster quality production, less rework, less natural resources, less overtime, pay the girls more. Fine. Minimize transport, rapid throughput, cash conversion. Yesterday I mentioned Taiichi Ono about all we want to do when we get the order, when we get the cash, make that the shortest time possible. When somebody says, you spend your money on buying fabric and materials, and then I'll give you money in a couple of years, you go, hang on a minute, I don't want anything to do with that. You want it to be shortest time possible. One company, some time ago, that in Sri Lanka that I worked with, their target was actually to buy the fabric and pay after 3 months for the fabric, and actually manufacture the goods so fast and ship it to the retailer that they got paid for the goods before they paid for the fabric. That was their target. Now you can imagine what that does for your profitability and your cash flow. Change your culture to one of waste reduction. Tell people to switch the lights off. Simple things. Save all the costs. Okay, what I've just wanted to whiz through fairly quickly. Lean and green, hand in hand. The two go together. You take on green initiatives, you save natural resources, you save the world, you save money, you save your business. It's part of the same thing. And most of it's sensible. Most of it's just common sense things. Turn the lights off, switch the computers off. When you're not there, save the money, and you'll add to your bottom line. Okay, thank you.